Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Tarosian, and this is RamView, the August 26th, 2022 edition, brought to you by Temple City Auto Repair. If you need some auto help, get yourself some John and Henry at Temple City Auto Repair. You can find them at templecityauttorepair.com in Temple City. Hey, all right, great to be back. I kind of took the week off a little bit. I have a tendency to dive into things sometimes and leave everything else behind. I had to play catch up. I was doing so many shows there for a while, but I decided I needed to get back into today because there's so much talk about a joint practice that the Bengals and Rams had yesterday. Now, honestly, before this year, I've heard about them. I knew these things took place, but you say joint practice to me, and I'm thinking, Cheech, Chong, and Snoop are getting ready to give a TED Talk. I really don't care about these joint practices. Whatever they are, they're not games, okay? They're joint practices. And Aaron Donald got into a fight. Leonard Floyd got into a fight with the team that they played in the Super Bowl last year. Yeah, La'el Collins was at the Cowboys last year, but let me just tell you what this is. You know what happens? Players get in fights. I almost got in fights with some of my teammates when I was playing different ball, basketball mostly. And it happens. You get in a fight. It happens at practice, right? And it wasn't necessarily a public thing because they weren't filming it. NFL Network wasn't filming it. We got from somebody's phone 50 yards away what's taking place. But here's the deal. The KBM, which I describe as the kiss butt media, they want to scalp, right? And so they're crusading for justice. Mike Florio and Pro Football Talk. This, folks, is a non-issue. It's a non-issue. Let it go. Don't worry about what somebody else is saying. It's the media. They want to scalp. Now, surprisingly, I don't know how you felt about it, but I thought Deshaun Watson really got off easy by the media. I don't think the media came after him as hard as they came after Michael Vick. We see this slow brew right now happening where Aaron Donald, more and more, it's like, oh, he could have killed somebody, could have injured somebody. And we all know the rules. Everyone heard the rules. The NFL doesn't regulate practices or joint practices, whether or not Cheech, Chong, or Snoop are there. They don't regulate these practices, so it's up to the teams. So what I would do if I was McSneed is I would go to Aaron Donald and say, yeah, Aaron, don't do that again. Okay, let's go. That's it. That's the end of the story. It was a fight at practice. And here's the deal. The NFL and the KBM doesn't have a foot to stand on. I don't care if Deshaun Watson was suspended 6 games or 11 games. He's going to be in an NFL uniform this year. And to suspend a player or call for the suspension of a player who got into a fight at practice, we're talking practice, man. Sorry, it's a joke. So here's the deal where it becomes a hot issue for me. It's if Aaron Donald apologizes. Note to Aaron Donald. I know you watch the show on a regular basis, you and Stan and everybody. Don't apologize. Now, if you want to apologize privately, personally, maybe you need to say something to your teammates. I don't know if you want to. Do it privately with no reporters around, and then tell them to keep it on the down low, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to issue a public apology, because for the KBM, it's never enough, all right? They want your scalp. They want a scalp because they haven't gotten a scalp. And for some reason, Deshaun Watson wasn't good enough. But they're coming after Aaron Donald because he's in LA. He's alpha male. Let's take him down. So Aaron Donald, do me a favor. Don't apologize. There's nothing to apologize for. And honestly, I think it's Florio at Pro Football Talk. Really, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. Okay. So we don't need an apology. Okay. Privately, if you want to do something, great. But the rest of the world doesn't need an apology, all right? And the Rams, you'd be fools if you did anything other than say, Aaron, cool, I love the energy. Yeah, try not to get into a fight before the season starts, all right? There we go. Boom. And, again, you're playing the team you played in the Super Bowl. There's always going to be some chippiness, right? Of course there is. So, I don't know. Think about it next time, right? In terms of the organizations getting together. So one of the last battles taking place right now is for the offensive line. We know who the 5 starters are. We got Edwards. We got Coleman Shelton at the guards. We got Havenstein and Notables. We got Brian Allen at center. You got Shelton, who could play back. You got Tremaine Ankrum, who could play tackle or guard. You got Alaric Jackson, who plays tackle. right guard this past week. And so those guys are very flexible, but the Rams likely are going to keep 8. And it really boils down to 7th-round draft pick AJ Arcuri out of Michigan State, or Bobby Evans, a 2019 draft pick who has just not developed at all. And there's a third person in there that I just want to throw his name out, that he's been with the Rams since 2019, and one of those slow developmental guys, a la Coleman Shelton, a la Tremaine Ankrum, a la Brian Allen, and his name is Chandler Brewer. And Brewer began his career as a tackle, so he's played some tackle, but he's been mostly playing left guard in the preseason. And a lot of folks are speculating that it's between Arcuri and Donald Evans, or Bobby Evans, I'm sorry. But Bobby Evans has had his shot, and Bobby Evans has not played well. In fact, if you look at the PFF grades, the Pro Football Focus grades for the first 2 preseason games, all these players have played significant time. The one who grades out on top with 83 snaps, and it's not fantastic, but grades out on top, is Chandler Brewer, 6'7", 220, right? The next is the 7th-round draft pick at Michigan State, AJ Arcuri. He grades out next, really middle of the road. And you know who grades out below par and played the entire game against Houston? Bobby Evans. And that right side of the line, Logan Bruss had his problems before his knee went out, but so did Bobby Evans. And so I don't know if this is between Arcuri and Evans as much as it might be between Brewer and Arcuri, right? Evans has proven he can't play guard or tackle in the NFL. Arcuri is a tackle. Brewer has had snaps at both tackle and guard. And so Brewer is going to make the team be the 8th guy. You know, a 7th-round draft pick is a 7th-round draft pick. They do like Arcuri. It's obvious. They're giving him playing time. But don't be surprised if Chandler Brewer is on the squad. I think they probably believe they can probably keep Arcuri and pass Chandler Brewer through waivers easier than they could Arcuri. Interesting thing, you know, I had it at the end of the list here. You know, the Rams released Adrian Eli. He was a guard early on in the preseason. Adrian Eli didn't even play in the Rams' first game, and he was cut, and the Steelers signed him. Now, the Steelers signed him because their offensive line is so bad that they took a guy the Rams wouldn't even give snaps to. And so if a guy like Arcuri gets put on the waiver wire, there's a chance he's going to get snapped up by, you know, a team like the Steelers. I'm not saying the Steelers will sign him, but he'll be harder to pass through to the practice squad, where Chandler Brewer, under the radar, might be able to. Bobby Evans, man, I think it's over. I really do. I just think it is over. Maybe they waive him, they pass him through. Maybe he passes through the waiver wire, goes to the practice squad. But honestly, haven't we seen all we need to see out of Bobby Evans? I think it's about it, right? Hey, so as we come up to the 9-minute mark here on the RamView show, I'm Joe Tarosian, and I was a sports writer for 21 years, I guess you could say, since I'm doing my own thing. I still am a sports writer. I was, I guess you could say, sports editor, managing editor at Mid-Valley Sports, which is still kicking and covering the NFL. You might want to check them out at midvalleysports.com. They're covering the Chargers. But I was there for a number of years, and we covered everything from high school up to pro. And now I write books, and I pastor a church. I've been pastoring a church in Burbank for a number of years. It's a small church in Burbank. It is my day job. I am a minister. But I also write books. I've written 2 high school football novels, Tangent Dreams and Temple City, Company of the Ages, all available on Amazon.com. Received some nice reviews. And also, I've also written some explicitly Christian novels, dystopian-like, Sin Virus. You can check that out on Amazon as well. This YouTube cast is also turned into podcasts on both Spotify and on iHeartRadio. You could follow us there on those channels as well. So there we go. I got the commercial in. Get the commercial in, guys? All right, we got the commercial in. And going around the NFL, I don't want to go too far around the NFL because I just want to go up north, because the team that still scares me is always going to be the 49ers, because Kyle Shanahan, up until the NFC title game, was Sean McVay's daddy, right? We know that. We made all the jokes last year about that. But I just think they're taking a huge risk with Jimmy G. I understand they want to get the job as Trey Lance. They made the big move to Trey Lance, and Jimmy G is still around. And what happens if Trey Lance falters. And we've talked about this. Now, I remain optimistic for Lance. I think he is going to be okay. But let's just say he really flops. Do you suddenly bring Jimmy G back? Or do you just take your lumps with Trey Lance? And here's the issue. You might have to take your lumps with Trey Lance. Maybe the first 5 to 6 games of the year is a learning experience, and he really catches fire down the stretch. He finds his groove, and everything's all good. But even if that happens, do you see Trey Lance winning a Super Bowl this year? Right? Do you see him winning a Super Bowl? And that's the question right now, because while the Rams have a Super Bowl window, they've fully exploited that Super Bowl window by committing to so many players, from Bobby Wagner to Matthew Stafford to Allen Robinson. The Rams are committed to going through their window full first, and they already have. They've won a Super Bowl, and you can see they want to get back to another one. They're doing the things necessary to get back, and so they have those pieces in place, especially the quarterback. But that 49er window, if they lose another year in the development of Trey Lance, okay, let's say the Rams don't even go to the Super Bowl. Let's say it's the Buccaneers or the Vikings or somebody goes to the Super Bowl, right? Maybe the Eagles slip in. I don't know, okay? Whatever it is, do you really see it being the 49ers? And their Super Bowl window is starting to close, okay? Now, I know this sounds crazy, but Nick Bosa is going to be 25 this year, but he's a Bosa. All right, he's played 2 of his 3 seasons in the NFL. He had a whole season that he missed. Deebo Samuel is 26 right now with a lot of mileage, and he does get nicked up. George Kittle, who's been nicked up, will be 29 this year and is already showing wear. Trent Williams, outstanding, all-pro, all-everything left tackle, is 34 this year and has 11 seasons under his belt. And I don't believe everybody is Andrew Whitworth that's going to excel till their 40th birthday, you know? And now let's just say, okay, Trey Lance doesn't completely flame out and create an issue where, oh my gosh, we got rid of Jimmy G or we're stuck with Jimmy G. But let's just say Trey Lance does, after 6 or 7 games, you know, pulls it all together. And realistically, let's just say the Rams do what they should do, and San Francisco qualifies for a wild card spot, okay? But they're not going to the Super Bowl, right? And that means when we get to 2023, okay, Bosa's going to be 26. Deebo Samuel with more wear is going to be 27. George Kittle is going to be 30. Trent Williams is going to be 35. Kyle Juszczyk is going to be, he's a fullback, he'll be 32. Jimmy Ward's going to be 32. Eric Armstead's going to be 30. This window for the 49ers is closing. It's closing. They've already got 4 good years out of Fred Warner, and he's getting into second contract time, and he's going to be pushing towards his late 30s. Now, I'm not saying he's going downhill, but what I'm saying is this window starts to collapse, and their quarterback is not going to be Super Bowl ready. And so I think it's marvelous in the sense for the Rams, because the 49ers do scare me. But this Jimmy G situation is really, man, if I'm a veteran, I'm like George Kittle. I'm 29 this year. I want to get back to the Super Bowl. And this is kind of going to end up being a developmental year. And maybe Trey pulls it together. Jimmy G gives me a chance. He had me in the NFC title game. He's taken me to a Super Bowl. Now, I don't think Jimmy G is all that in a bag of chips, but you know what you have in him. So it's really fascinating what's happening with the 49ers. And I do think personally, I think Trey Lance is going to be okay. I think he'll develop, but is he going to develop enough this year? And then we get to 2023, 2024, as he's coming into his own, all of a sudden we're seeing age. Kittle's aging out. Samuel's aging out. We're seeing those things because we know what happens in the NFL. You know, you get banged up. You get bounced around. For all the older stars the Rams have, is they bring around them a lot of these younger guys that they've developed. Now, the 49ers do the same, but it's a lot different when you don't have the quarterback, right? It's a lot different. So something to think about. I was just looking at some of the cuts. You know, there's going to be bigger cuts later on as we get out of this weekend, as teams have to get down to their final roster spots. Tavon Austin, the former Ram, was cut by the Bills recently. CJ Verdell. If you ever saw him at Oregon, you thought, oh, man, this guy's going to be special even at the beginning of the year. And then he just died. He didn't see him at all in 2021. He was cut by the Colts. Of course, Kenyon Drake was cut by the Raiders. I mentioned Adrian Eli being cut by the Rams and claimed by the Steelers to have a bad offensive line. The other thing that really interested me about the Steelers was they cut Master Teague out of Ohio State. I just love that name, Master Teague, like Boone Heron, like Harlan. There's always these backs with a great name. And Master Teague just sounds like a great name, but he got cut by the Steelers, so he's USFL bound. The Steelers cut Master Teague, but they signed Washington State utility guy Max Borghi. Do you remember Max Borghi? Played for Washington State up there in the Palouse. Max Borghi was cut by the Broncos, signed by the Steelers, who need depth. And I was talking to my friend Rob Sorge, who's the Steeler fan who lives in Missouri. And, he is, of course, everything Steelers. If Tomlin says it, Sorge says amen. The Steelers, the one thing they have to be careful of, and I know it's going to be an issue this coming year, is that temptation to give the ball to Najee Harris over and over and over and over again. Maybe to help the development of Kenny Pickett, to protect Trubisky. But the problem is, I just think Najee Harris, I think he's really good. I like Najee Harris, but I just wouldn't give him the ball that much. I'd want to protect him in his touches. And then the bummer news for the Chargers is J.C. Jackson had the minor ankle surgery. They were projecting 2 to 4 weeks. He may miss the opener. He may miss the following one. I've actually heard something that he may make the opener. It wasn't heavy-duty surgery, but playing in the AFC West this year is the equivalent of being in the SEC. There are no breaks. While the Rams might get a break against Seattle, I think Cardinals are overrated. And, of course, then you got the 49ers to deal with. If you look what the Chargers got to deal with the Raiders, the Broncos, right, and the Chiefs. All these teams are always either improving or getting better. And so they need J.C. Jackson. They have to have J.C. Jackson because here they are. They're making investments, which I think is more due to their GM, Tom Telesco, more than Spanos. You never trust a Spanos. That's my rule. But he does seem to have the right GM in there. And you want the Chargers to do well, just not that well. You have to wonder who you're rooting for in the AFC West. But I do know this, in the AFC West, that is appointment must-see television. I no longer have my Sunday ticket because the Rams are home. I watch every Ram game and I record them. But I do find myself looking at every game that the AFC West is going to play against each other and say, man, I have got to see that game. So I'm contemplating purchasing a package. So there we go. We're hitting the 17-minute mark. I'm Joe Tarosian. Oh, Bill Olajaji is watching the show live. Bill, you need to hit the link. Spread it out to your friends. I gave Raider love today. Well, I'm giving Raider love now. I think the Raiders are going to be really good. I think their defense still has some struggles, but I think the Broncos might not be right where they think they are. And, of course, the Chiefs are always problems, but I find myself often now, because of their location in Vegas, rooting for the Raiders. Unbelievable. Okay, great. Guys, thank you so much for clicking on. You can find us again on iHeart, RamView. You can find us also on Spotify and all over social media. Please leave a comment, hit like, hit subscribe, and let us know what you think, because we have a lot of fun talking NFL, football, and mostly about the Rams. God bless, take care, and we will talk to you soon.